Good morning. I'm Rev Jess, and welcome to Grand River Unitarian Congregation's virtual service for May 24th. Today, I'm going to share the story of how I met Jizo, a bodhisattva in the Japanese Buddhist tradition. A bodhisattva is a being whose primary concern is to extend compassion to all beings, helping all sentient beings also achieve enlightenment. And so we are called toward kindness and compassion for all. So I want to begin with a poem by Naomi Shihab Nye. It's called Kindness. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment like salt in a weekend broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go, so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the windows forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to gaze at bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is I you have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere, like a shadow or a friend. Let us light our chalice as we gather. Let this flame be to us a symbol of the wholeness we seek, its brightness dispelling gloom, lighting a path to faith and hope, its glow reminding us of the sacred bonds which link us to all people, its radiance calling us to seek justice, equity, and compassion for all the world. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in harmony with the earth. Thus do we covenant together.
One, each person is important. Two, be kind in all you do. Three, we're free to learn together. Four, and search for what is true. Five, of people have those hopes. Six, build a fair and peaceful world. Seven, we care for what's on earth. That will bring us back to me and you.
Hi guys, my name's Kaya. I work in the nursery at GRU, and I wanted to share a story with you. It was one of my favorite stories as a kid, and still is. It's called Millicent and the Wind by Robert Munch. This is actually from when I was a kid, so there are some pages that are falling out. One morning, when all the world was quiet, Millicent stood on her mountaintop and looked at the world. She saw trees and rocks and sunshine and clouds, but no other children. Far away in the valley was where the other children lived. It took 3 whole days just to walk there. Millicent had no friends. On this morning, someone whispered very softly, "Hey, Millicent." Millicent looked all around, but all that she saw were the trees and rocks and sunshine and clouds. Then someone whispered louder, "Hey, Millicent." This time Millicent said, "There is nothing I see except trees and rocks and sunshine and clouds, and they cannot talk. Who are you?" "Millicent," whispered the voice, "I am the wind." "Oh no," said Millicent. "The wind howls and roars and whistles and rustles. It doesn't talk." Then the wind blew Millicent's dress around her legs. It very softly touched her face and hair and said, "I am the very wind of all the world. I blow when I wish and talk when I want to. The day is so quiet and the sunshine so yellow that I feel like talking right now." "Well," said Millicent, "I have no friends and lots of time. Can you play tag?" "Certainly," said the wind. So they played tag, running among the trees and the rocks and the sunshine. "Come back tomorrow," said Millicent, and the wind did come every day. But there was a time when Millicent was not there. She and her mother had gone down over the rocks and into the deep forest. They were walking all the way to the valley to buy the things they needed, so the wind could not play tag that day. It blew all over the world looking for Millicent, but Millicent was walking far at the bottom of a forest, and the wind could not find her. Oops. Millicent and her mother walked for 3 days and finally came to the valley where people lived. When they walked through the valley, all the children came out of their houses and looked at Millicent. One boy with red hair said to Millicent, "Who are you and where did you come from?" She said, "My name is Millicent. I live on the mountain top. I have no friends except the wind." And the red-haired boy said, "The wind is nobody's friend." And all the children started to yell, "Millicent, Millicent lives on a mountain top. Go home, Millicent." Then a strange thing happened. A very large wind came and picked the red-haired boy right up into the sky and tumbled him around like a leaf until his clothes were all tatters and his hair was a mess. All the children ran away. Millicent and her mother went to town and bought the things they needed, but Millicent was sorry that the children had run away. It took them 3 whole days to walk back to the mountain. When they got there, Millicent looked at the trees and the rocks and the clouds and the sunshine and wished that she had somebody to play with besides the wind. "Wind," said Millicent, "you blow through the hair of every child everywhere in the world. Can you find me someone to play tag with?" "Boy or girl," said the wind. "Get me a friend," said Millicent. The wind turned into something huge and enormous that rumbled the rocks and bent the trees and whistled off far away until Millicent could not hear it any more. But in a little while, it came back and it carried a boy. The wind put him down. Millicent looked at the boy. The boy looked at Millicent. "Let's play," said Millicent. And they did. The end.
Spirit of God, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the land, giving life the shape of justice. Roots holy grows, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
There was a time in my life that seems both a minute ago and a lifetime ago when I felt so very alone in the world, when I felt absolutely friendless. I had moved across the country to go to school, to go to seminary, actually, and it was a new climate, a new culture. I was different from the other people in my class. I come from a different background, and I was overwhelmed with the work. I was overwhelmed with loneliness, so far away from friends and family and the life that I had known before. I was struggling. And on top of this struggle, there was, in a 1 week period, a series of really terrible things that happened. On the one hand, I suffered a breakup of a relationship that was very special to me. And even in the best of circumstances, we know that breaking up is hard to do. And in that same week, I suffered a betrayal from someone whom I had trusted. And on the heels of this breakup and the betrayal and the loneliness and the isolation and the overwhelm of all of the work and the difference around me, I was struggling. Part of what kept me grounded and kept me going in those very difficult days was a postcard from a friend. She was living in Florida at the time, and I had told her that I was having a hard time. I had shared with her what had happened, and she sent me this big oversized postcard. And I'm sure it's here somewhere in a box. I wish I could find it, but it had a chihuahua barking at an alligator. And on the back of this card, she had mentioned something about Jizo. And she assumed, because my practice is informed by Buddhism, that I knew who Jizo was. Well, thank goodness for the internet. I looked it up. And Jizo is a bodhisattva. A bodhisattva in Buddhism is kind of like a saint. It's one of the first things I learned about Jizo is that Jizo is a kind of patron saint of both hell and children and travelers. And as is the case with most mythical religious figures from different traditions that have traveled over different cultures, there are so many stories, so many complications and rituals and complexities to the stories that I'm only going to share a small piece of the Jizo story, the piece that interconnected with mine. But if you want to learn more, I would suggest one of a couple of books. This is my primary text on Jizo. You can see it's quite well worn. Read this more than once. Jizo by Jan Chosen Bays. And there's another text on my bookcase on Jizo and a ritual around Jizo. And take a look. Jeff Wilson. Oh, we know Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for this book. So it's a very deep and complicated tradition, but I just want to share one story that had captured me and that explained why my friend knew that this would be a helpful image for me in my continuing journey. Continues to be an important story for my life, a way to conceive of courage in the face of fear and uncertainty. And so this is the legend of the riverbank of Sai. An old Japanese legend tells of the fate of children who die young. They gather on the banks of a river called Sai, where they pile up beach pebbles to make small altars in remembrance of their parents and siblings. They say, "This one is for my mother who protected me. This one is for my father who held my hand. This is for my sister." In sunnier versions of this legend, the children are playing and Jizo helps them. The children make stone altars in order to build enough merit to cross to the other shore of the river, where they will be able to pass on to the next rebirth. But there is a more distressing version of the Sai legend, which is described in one religious picture book for children as so frightening that if you heard it in summer, you would start to shiver and wouldn't be able to stop. The beach in this story is lonely and desolate, and the children are grieving for the families they have left behind. An ugly hag with burning eyes called Datsuba tortures the children, taunts them, and because they have died young, the children cannot fulfill their duty toward their parents in old age. To make up for this, they must spend each day building these altars, and every day at dusk, the wicked, fierce demons with horns and fangs emerge from the gathering gloom and descend upon the children, yelling insults. "You weren't even around long enough to learn anything, you miserable brats." And with their iron staffs, they demolish the piles of stones that the children have spent all day trying to build. But then Jizo Bodhisattva appears, and the frightened children run to him, taking sanctuary under his flowing robes. The littlest among them cling to his staff or are taken up in his arms. He soothes them, saying, "There's nothing to be frightened of. From now on, I will be your protector. I will be your mother and your father." The wicked demons demand that Jizo return the children, but Jizo stands firm, radiating brilliant light, and the demons retreat. This is the suffering that all go through in the netherworld, and only Jizo can rescue these little ones. It's a nightmarish story, isn't it? It seems so cruel, so harsh, and against the most vulnerable among us. But consider that the purpose of the story is to develop skills in coping and hoping. I'll share with you a commentary on the legend by Zen master Soko Morinaga, and this is written in a Japanese cultural context, but I think you'll see that there are many correlations with our culture here as well. The master says, Isn't it interesting that the way Shizo protects children is just to shelter them under his sleeve? He doesn't send the devils away in order to make it easier for the children. If Jizo is so compassionate and is the king of vows, why doesn't he just wipe out the devils so the children can pile their stones with ease? The real compassion of Shizo is to raise children who patiently pile stones without saying, "I give up," even if devils relentlessly demolish their piles of stones. Jizo protects those who courageously try again and again. I am afraid that we have made a big mistake in raising children. The big misunderstanding is about the devil named hardship. Many years ago, our grandparents thought hardship was very important for building character, saying the young should struggle with adversity. But after World War II, the idea spread that we should avoid hardship as much as possible, viewing it as unlucky to have excessive hardship. As it is troublesome to open a door, we have invented the automatic door opener. In the kitchen alone, we have developed the electric stove and a dishwasher, a lemon squeezer, food chopper, mixmaster. People began to think that time and labor saving was equal to happiness. We used to use grandmother's worn-out kimonos for diapers and wash them one by one. Now people use paper diapers and throw them away after one use. Children used to take lunches to school in a box wrapped in cloth. They struggled to learn how to tie a bow knot, a vertical knot, and a horizontal knot. But nobody goes through such troublesome business anymore. They don't even tie shoes or sharpen pencils. Everything is made easy. In this way, people have begun to think that if they take all the troublesome things from our lives, that they will lead a life free of hardship. If today's parents were Jizo Bodhisattva, they would kill all the devils and make a machine to pile the stones for the children. But with all the hardship removed, have children become happy? Have we become happy? We have to recognize that none of us humans are born to live without hardship. We cannot enjoy true freedom until we go through hardship. When you play the piano, you work hard and are corrected many times by your teacher. Sometimes you might be discouraged, but if you continue patiently, gradually your skill improves and you learn to play well. The devils at the riverside might be called partners of Jizo Bodhisattva. They contribute their half to his virtuous action. Hardship and effort always accompany us to ensure our happiness and help us avoid misfortune. If we accept our hardships with a gentle mind, believing and praying quietly, our hardships will give us happiness. Jizo shelters the children from the devils, but he also sends them out to pile the stones once more. This is the Buddha. This is the very essence of religion.
No lotus, haven't you noticed the patterns of pain in your past? The things that broke you also awoke you to the questions you needed to ask. dizzying heights, and the dreams, some of which came true. Tough breaks, heartaches, perfect mistakes created this version of you. And everything you go through grows you, grows you, and everything you go through grows you, exposes who you are. If it hurt, it made you softer. His heart, it moved the hunger. If it touched you, your heart took hold. If it was simple, it made you wise. If it was sweet, it made you smile. Weaved an indelible impression on your soul. Your feet walked and your lips, they talked, and your hands dug around for the proof. Every look, every book pictured in your mind that you took created this version of you. And everything you go through grows you, grows you, and everything you go through grows you, expose the roots of an endless summer, apart on temporary lovers, and the swoon of the deep blue sky. And as the time flew, you planted and gathered up your truth as it passed before your eyes. And the wound is where the light gets in, revealing the masterpiece just beneath the skin. In the glow of your own light and your petals open wide, you bloom right where you are. And everything you go through grows you, grows you, and everything you go through grows you, grows who you are. No mud, no lotus. Haven't you noticed the patterns of pain in your past? The things that broke you also awoke you to the questions you needed to ask, to the questions you needed to ask.
Renowned meditation teacher Jack Kornfield offers this bodhisattva response to coronavirus in the form of a letter. Dear friends, we have a choice. Epidemics like earthquakes, tornadoes, and floods are part of the cycle of life on planet Earth. How will we respond? With greed, hatred, fear, and ignorance? This only brings more suffering. Or with generosity, clarity, steadiness, and love? This is a time for love. Time for bodhisattvas. In Buddhist teachings, the bodhisattva is someone who vows to alleviate suffering and brings blessings in every circumstance. A bodhisattva chooses to live with dignity and courage and radiates compassion for all, no matter where they find themselves. This is not a metaphor. As bodhisattvas, we are now asked to hold a certain measure of the tragedy of the world and respond with love. The bodhisattva path is in front of us. The beautiful thing is, we can see bodhisattvas all around. We can see them singing from their balconies to those shut inside. We see them in young neighbors caring for elders nearby, in our brave healthcare workers, and the unheralded ones who stock the shelves of our grocery stores. What can I do? What can we do? In this moment, we can sit quietly, take a deep breath, and acknowledge our fear and apprehension, our uncertainty and helplessness, and hold all those feelings with a compassionate heart. We can say to our feelings and uncertainty, "Thank you for trying to protect me, and I am okay for now." We can put our fears in the lap of Buddha, Mother Mary, Kuan Yin, place them in the hearts of the generations of brave physicians and scientists who tended the world in former epidemics. When we do, we can feel ourselves part of something greater, of generations of survivors in the vast web of history and life, being carried, as the Ojibwa elders say, by great winds across the sky. This is a time of mystery and uncertainty. Take a breath. The veils of separation are parting, and the reality of interconnection is apparent to everyone on earth. We have needed this pause, perhaps even needed our isolation to see how much we need one another. Dear Bodhisattva, the world awaits your compassionate heart. Let's join in this great task together. And this is my hope for Unitarian Universalism and for this congregation, this beloved community. It's my hope that we continue to companion one another through our hardships and through our suffering. We cannot take it away. We cannot diminish the pain. We cannot make the suffering go away. We cannot banish hardship from one another's lives. But what we can do is to help one another cope and help one another hope. And so I'll remind you again of what I have said so many Sundays before. 2 things to remember in this challenging time. That this is for now, it is not forever. And that though we have to be apart, we do not have to be alone. May the story of Jizo Bodhisattva bring you hope. May you share your own stories of hope, those avatars of resilience with one another as we continue to share, as we continue to grow, as we continue to be for one another. May it be so.
Carry the flame of peace and love till we meet again. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Then we shall see a world of light and a world of joy. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again.
Let us carry the flame, friends. Let the people say,
For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its reward.